All right, welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to discuss taxpayer accountability when it comes to Section 8 housing. And I can tell you guys, getting high on the taxpayer dollar is definitely going to draw to a conclusion at this point. It's been a great effort through both administrative plans and code of federal regulation to try to address this. At present, they have looked at whether or not time limits and work requirements would work on congressional vote. Since that didn't work out, they made it part of code of federal regulation, which they'll be rolling out. And part of this deal is, if you look back, and I believe I have a little bit of information for you guys on the HR line they put out for possible reform. Let's see if I still have it. So it looks like HR 1709. So 2017, they wanted to roll out drug testing, but at the congressional level, they kind of knocked that down. But we're starting to see that the administration and President Trump is carefully reviewing whether or not they can implement this through code of federal regulation for housing rules. That would not require a vote and will likely potentially be on next year's agenda. Now, if they're successful, they may take a shot for this trying to implement it through food stamps. So if it happens either on either side, on SNAP benefits or food stamps, or if they attempt to do this through housing in Section 8 and housing and federal programs, then what will likely happen is it will fall in the administration of PHAs. At present, housing authorities are looking at criminal backgrounds as well as drug convictions throughout most client cases as an indicator or red flag as to whether or not a person is going to have problems in terms of using federal housing and then failing miserably through drug testing. Now, that's going to raise larger questions for many of you that receive medical marijuana and other issues, but I don't think that's up for debate. I think what's up for debate at this point is there's been already a success in terms of circumventing Congress to not seek a congressional vote, but rather to actually just make this part of code of federal regulation, creating a stipulation or requirement through the Public Housing Authority, better known as the PHA. If they're successful there in the CFR, then what will happen is they'll probably have a reporting system and accountability system put in place where housing authorities on contention can basically order drug tests for anybody conceivably that's would appear to be under suspicion of drug use. And those that are on unauthorized medications or otherwise would violate federal rules. There are many things at the state level that are permitted that are not permitted at the federal level. And so the reason this is an important topic is, you know, with success in the 2 year time limits and work requirements in federal housing rolling out in code of federal regulation, the next natural step or evolution of the system will be basically trying to get this rolled out for drug use. And so, and many of you might argue, okay, well, Jay, why would you suggest this would be even consideration? Well, if you look at the actual agenda and what the president has discussed already, he already cut funding on a basis that he believes in principle that a lot of people in federal housing would be better served going through drug rehab and so on. And so, if you don't think that drug testing is not going to be part of this newer agenda after this clears for the first part, then you're crazy because that is the very storyline in which the administration has already examined very deeply. I mean, they cut 5 billion in federal funding on homelessness, and they prefer that people enter drug rehabs and receive mental health. And a large portion of that conversation was drug related. So the natural inclination, obviously, here is we're approaching a part where he's going to naturally want to see whether or not it's feasible to require under code of federal regulation that people receive drug testing and administrate that at the PHA level or public housing authority. I don't know the complexities in which they're going to consider. Again, those of you that take other medications or whether or not permissible medications or legal at state level and also federal. I mean, those are new arguments, obviously, but I would expect that this will probably enter debate moving into 2027 and 2028 as a final walkout victory for the administration to address that. And again, they're going to try to challenge probably from both sides. The two easiest things to target right now would be food stamps or obviously housing. If you have a win on one side, then you can guarantee it'll be a win on both sides. So they're probably going to test the resistance on both sides, and whichever is more likely will be rolled out in codified regulation. And then, of course, either food stamps or housing will follow suit, depending on which one's approved first. And so you're starting to see that not everything in the country is required by vote. Sometimes it's just put up in codified regulation as an open public format where people can comment. And if there isn't enough people that would comment against that, then they will roll that out. Once it becomes that code of federal regulation, then it's mandated basically at the state level that PHAs now take on that newer responsibility. Now, again, we don't know if it's going to be everybody line up with the local housing authority and take a drug test. I think that for this to even be manageable, reasonable, that it would have to be under suspicion or otherwise and reporting. But that opens up a new Pandora's box where people can report each other and other issues related. So we have to be careful how we proceed with this. Looking at this, I think that it's reasonable to consider some options, considering that drug use and behavior and criminal activity do follow suit and are closely observed in some types of housing. And so I don't believe that is the majority case for all Section 8 housing, only marginally a small factor. I mean, I think that there are other things we could probably address that could be a little bit more helpful, but this would be helpful in the fact of reducing probably criminality in some types of project-based housing and so forth. I'm going to move on to comments, and I'm going to check the time on the video, make sure we're keeping under our time. Shauna, good morning. Can't wait to hear this. Well, thank you. Karen knows in the live chat says Jay Cats in chat. Well, thank you. Hillbilly Hermit, morning. Good morning to you. Lori Music, good morning, Jay. Loretta, good morning, everybody. Pippi Longstocking, good morning, and Pam. Base citizen should implement verifying U.S. citizenship too. Well, I'm sure that's an important part because I mean, immigration has been a strong factor for this administration. So I would expect that things that the president talks about, as well as the administration, that these will be big things. You know, we've already discussed immigration. We've seen a reaction to that. We have looked at housing, and we saw reductions, cuts, and new rules. And then a big part of that secondary conversation was obviously people getting drug help. So that's clearly on the mind of the administration. And so we're looking at whether or not they're going to force it through under codified regulation rather than a congressional vote. Because if you try to implement this at the federal level through a congressional vote, then you could have civil rights violations. This has been argued before in a multitude of different time ranges going back in history. And so it's too hard to challenge it from that perspective because, you know, people still have privacy rights. But if you take this and put it on the lap of the local housing authority, then they can mitigate risk at federal level and just make codes and regulations for suspicion. And then that, of course, would be able to do it. But it remains questionable as to whether or not the administration or any single housing authority would have enough staff or even time to be able to actually implement this properly and then be able to do it without great cost. And we have to look at cost. But I think it's an important topic to look at and debate to see whether or not this will be one of the final things that rolls out towards the end of the administration of President Donald Trump and his administration. And I believe that it will become a focal point for 2027 and 2028. And so I'm glad we were able to kind of discuss this a little bit and see where this might go. Well, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you this morning. I didn't want to make a super long video, so I'm just doing the introductions for this today. You might want to join us for our AI video that's coming up, I believe, Tuesday. We're going to talk about the critical problems that are being created by job loss, housing, federal systems. And this directly relates to even those of you on federal housing or whether or not you have a job and go work. So it's an important video because the stuff is rolling out at a rapid pace. I mean, it's doubling almost every month. And so it's a very important topic related to many factors in your current life. So I'd have you join us again Tuesday around 10 a.m. Central Standard, and we'll discuss the implications of that across a multitude of federal programs, state programs, and of course, ordinary working class people in America. I've enjoyed talking with you today, and we hope to see you again Tuesday and Thursdays and Sundays is when we do the videos. All right. Have a great day. Bye for now.